Hi guys, my name is Tara Lewis, and this is the Vulnerable Woman Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. This podcast is about letting down your guard and being vulnerable. I share my story with you about things that I went through, and we're going to have guests on that share their story and things that they have gone through, because we want you to know that you are not alone on your journey. So I just encourage you as you listen to let down your guard and be vulnerable with us. So just to kind of recap a little bit from last week, I shared more of my story about a marriage that I was in that was not healthy and kind of how God brought me through that. If you were not able to join us last week, go check it out on our YouTube page. We would love to have you go back and listen. But go ahead and jump in today with us and you can catch up later. So this is the most exciting part of my story for me. And it's a fun story to tell. There's a lot more giggles and laughs, and it's not quite as serious as my last one, and not quite as hard to talk about. So, one thing that God always gives us, and I always like to say, and there used to be a song back in the day, He gives us beauty for ashes. Basically, in trials that we go through, God gives us something beautiful. And I know when you're in the moment, it really doesn't feel like it, because you're in the moment and you're thinking, God, am I ever gonna get through this? Yes, you will. I'm gonna answer that for God today. You will get through it. You will make it. You are going to make it through. I promise you that. Stop worrying about what's ahead. My husband has the best saying. He says, stop trying to look at step 3. Start with step 1. Because I'm famous for wanting to figure out step 3. But you got to do step 1 before you get to step number 3. So I would just encourage you, if you're in the kind of the valleys right now, start with step 1 and stop worrying about step 3, okay? Because then that'll kind of help it go through just a little bit quicker. Well, today I get to share with you a little bit more of my step 3, how God brought me the love of my life. And I'm sure some of you sitting on the other end of this camera are probably going, oh my gosh, great, another gross love story. You're welcome. There is hope out there for anybody. So my husband and I, we've been married for 18 years, and God has blessed me with the most amazing man. I'm so thankful for him. We met actually in 1999, back when we were in college, and we were in a speech class together. He sat behind me, and I always kid with him, and I'm going to probably get in trouble for saying this. I always tell him he had, the big round glasses that are popular now. He had those big old round glasses on, and a lot of his pictures, he's like, are you serious? He's had LASIK now and doesn't wear glasses. But I was like, well, that's what I remember as your big glasses. But we would talk, and we kind of became friends. Little did I know what was going on in his mind was not going on in my mind at the time. He was always very kind to me, nice, spoke to me, said hello. He wound up asking me out. We went to what they called then, it was called class night. It was kind of like, I guess, what I would consider a prom per se, kind of. You got dressed up, you went to like this event at the school, and then later on you went out and kind of had some fun and went to eat and had a good time. So he asked me, he says, hey, do you want to go to class night together? Well, I didn't have a date. So I was like, yeah, sure. Let's go. And so you go, you buy a dress, you go out. And so we went, and it was us two and then a couple of other friends that went with us. We went to a place called the Magic Time Machine. I don't even know if those even exist anymore. It's where you sit in like a little booth, and you're the person is dressed up as like kind of an old character, I guess you could say. And it's just kind of a fun place, and they try to portray the character, and they're your waiter. So we went there, and then afterwards they decided that they wanted to go to Reunion Tower. And if you're not from the Texas area, the Reunion Tower is in Dallas. It's kind of, when you see the skyline, it's that thing that looks like a big old ball. I guess I would compare it kind of like to the Space Needle in Seattle, except not quite as tall. So we went and we rode up the elevator to Reunion Tower, and we all kind of separate off. And I'm sitting here thinking, uh-oh. So you go stand and you go look at the Dallas skyline. And we were just kind of standing there talking, and I think he had his hand on my back, and he says, can I kiss you? And I looked at him and I said, no, you may not. we kind of remained friends after that. And we went on another date. I think we went to Joe's Crab Shack or something like that. And he tells me now, he said, I should have known how expensive you were back then when you got $20 crab legs on our date. And I said, well, you know, us good people, we like nice things. So he likes to make that joke all the time. So we had gone out again, and of course, again, he asked if he could kiss me, and of course, I said no. My poor husband, looking back, knowing what courage it takes for guys to ask to kiss a girl, like I feel so bad now that I turned him down several times. But he's always so sweet and so good about it, right? And he'd say, okay, you know. And I even told him, I remember when we were dating, I said, at the time, if you've met my husband, he has a lot of tattoos. And at the time, he didn't have any. And I remember we were in the car and we were driving somewhere, and he's like, yeah. He's like, I'm gonna get a tattoo. And I thought, okay. So I looked at him and I said, I would never date a guy that has tattoos. I think I said that then, and I think God was like, oh, you just wait. You just wait. I think God thinks it's a joke. So anyway, we kind of lost touch. He wound up leaving school. I believe he went and he started kind of in the golf course business, which is what he does now for a living, and just kind of expanded his career then. I'd run into him from time to time. Once at a youth camp, I think I saw him, and through a common friend that we still have now, we would kind of, keep touch, or I'd hear how he was doing, or vice versa. Well, here's where the neat part comes in, which I think God was already working at that time. The day that I found out that my ex-husband, who was my husband at the time, was cheating on me, that morning, I had a visitor come. The girl at the front desk, she comes back and she says, hey, there's a student here to see you. And I thought, oh, okay, no problem. I saw students all the time at my job. And I said, all right, you can send him back. She goes, yeah, I think his name is Jeremy. And I was like, okay. Again, didn't think anything about it. Lots of students, lots of people that I talked to, right? And so it was my now husband, Jeremy Lewis. And so he kind of comes around the corner. And I remember at that time thinking, because this ought to tell you how unhealthy my marriage was at that time. I remember thinking when he came around the corner, I was like, wow, did I mess up? I thought, wow, I let that just walk. And now I'm stuck in this. And I remember feeling just such heartbreak in that moment. Now, did he come in to flirt with me or anything like that? No. He knew I was married. He came just to say hello. That was really it. So because we remained friends, and we just kind of talked a little bit. And of course, I played it off like I had this wonderful, beautiful marriage, right? And he, of course, listened, and he says, I'm so glad you're doing well. I wish you the best. It's so good to see you. And then he left. And I think it was about 2 hours later was when I found out that my husband was having an affair. And, I just think it's so interesting how God already started to plant a seed in my life. After I left work that day, oddly enough, I thought, who could I call that would listen to me, wouldn't judge me, that I could talk to? And he was actually one of the people that I called. Because remember I said, I really struggled with trusting people out of fear of judgment and out of fear of what they would think of me. But I had known Jeremy for so long, I knew he would never judge me. So I did. I picked up the phone and I called him, and I was in tears. And I shared with him what I had found out. And him, being the amazing person that he is, just kind of said to me, you need to find somebody to talk to. You need to go and have someone walk alongside you. And he just said, I'm sorry that this happened to you. And he just listened to how I felt, listened to what I was going through. Did he offer me just this amazing advice? No. But what he did was he listened to me, period. That was it. So later on, as kind of everything kind of unfolded, as I talked about previously, my divorce was kind of starting to get final. I was going through all the things of him showing up and, just kind of that going back and forth. And I even went through a phase where I really questioned, should I get a divorce? Is this really what I should do? And had Jeremy really not kind of come into my life at that time, I don't know. Now, again, there's no way to know for sure, but I don't know that I wouldn't have went back to him. Now, did Jeremy make any kind of move on me at that time? No, he did not. He was very respectful of me. He just looked at me as a friend. That was it. But because I saw the kind of person that he was, it helped me understand what a godly man really was. That's what it helped me see. And it helped me see that what I was in was not healthy, and that there are men out there who do follow God, who do live a healthy, godly life. And that's what he did. He showed me that. Did he go and do something super spectacular? No. He was just kind. He was a friend. He listened to me. And that phone call that I called him that day, I didn't talk to him for a long time after that. That was it. So as time passed, a good friend of mine, she was getting married. And she, of course, she was always kind of the seed, I guess I'd call her the seed planter. She always wanted Jeremy and I to be together, and I, of course, was just not interested in those days. And so I was in her wedding, and she kind of planted the seed. She said, hey, guess who's going to sing at my wedding? And I said, oh, who? I don't really know who. She said, oh, Jeremy's going to sing at my wedding. And I thought, oh, okay, great. I would love to see him. Nothing in my mind really came to the place of a romantic relationship. I'll just be honest. So that night at the rehearsal dinner, and I think this is kind of where the shift came in my life, he was there, and the first thing he did is he came up to me and he said, how are you? Because he had known what I had gone through. And I said, well, it's been tough, but I said, it's almost done. And I just told him, thank you. I said, thank you for being, my friend and a confidant at one point. And he says, well, I'm so glad you're doing better. And he said, it's so good to see you. And then he just kind of walked away, and, we had the rehearsal. And I remember thinking in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, just all the little butterflies started to come. And I thought, man, oh man, did I mess up big. So we went to the rehearsal dinner and we chatted and talked. And then later on, we went to a restaurant with some friends and chatted and talked some more. And after that, he had left his keys in my car. I had to drive him back to his car. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to ask. I'm just going to be bold. I'm going to ask. So he's about to get out of my car. And I said, look, I know back in the day I messed up and I missed out. But I said, after all this is over for me, I said, would you ever give me another chance? And of course, and my husband, being the man he is, he says, I'll think about it, and then got out of the car and walked away. I think that was a little bit of him giving me a little bit of payback for all those times that I told him no. So the next day at the wedding, to make a kind of a long story short, I walked him out to his car. He says, walk me out to my car. I said, all right. So I walked him out to his car, and he just leaned in and he gave me a kiss. He didn't even ask this time. I think he knew. But what I say to say that is that, God knows. He knows you. He knows the plans he has for you, right? He has a purpose for you. He had a purpose for Jeremy, for me. And, I'm so thankful that God gave me a second chance. He gave me a second chance at a good relationship. And pretty much after that moment, everything just was so beautiful and so perfect. And, to the person that said we made out in the church on a church pew, shame on you. That did not happen. I just want to put that in there. Shame, shame. You may want to cut that out. Sorry. I just had to say that. We did not make out in church. It was the church parking lot. Get your facts straight. Anyway, I say all that. I'm so thankful that God gave me a second chance, and he gave me a second chance at love. And he took something that could have been such a disaster in my life, And he took it and he made it something so perfect and so beautiful. And even during my relationship with Jeremy, during our dating phase, there were a few times where my ex-husband called. At one time, he threatened him and told him basically to leave his wife alone. And I think Jeremy told him that I wasn't his wife anymore, right? But Jeremy always handled everything with integrity, right? There was even a time, and I hate admitting this, and this is hard to say. There was even a time when we were dating that my ex-husband showed up and I cheated on Jeremy with him because he came in and he manipulated me. And Jeremy had the grace. We kind of took the weekend and I was honest with him. And Jeremy knew. It was funny. He knew. I told him I was going to the grocery store, but he could hear in my voice that something wasn't right. And he kept asking me, are you okay? Are you okay? And he kept calling me. And he knew. And I finally admitted. I said, I'm sorry. It was a horrible mistake. And he said, we took a break for the weekend, and he called me back the next morning and he says, I love you so much. And he says, I know that was hard for you. And he says, I forgive you. And he forgave me. And like I said, we've been married 18 years with 2 beautiful, fantastic daughters. And I'm so thankful for that. I want to read to you Isaiah 61:3. And this one I pulled out of the New Living Translation because I just like how it kind of words it. It says, to all who mourn in Israel, he will give a crown of beauty for ashes, a joyous blessing instead of mourning, festive praise instead of despair. In their righteousness, they will be like great oaks the Lord has planted for his own glory. Now, when I read that, the one thing that really sticks out to me is it says that they will be like great oaks. I don't know if you've ever seen an oak tree, but we have one in our front yard. And they planted it, I believe, when the house was built in 2005. And the tree, we are constantly having to trim it back because it just grows and grows and the branches are so big. And not just that, but the roots, they're starting to come like almost above the ground in front of our house, and they're kind of going towards our foundation. They're huge. They're huge. We even had a neighbor ask us at one time about the roots because they were starting to come into her yard because the roots were just so big and so deep and so strong. And we've even talked about maybe having to cut the tree back or do something because we don't want it to damage our foundation. But that's what God says he's going to make you like. He's going to take these trials that you go through and he's going to make you stronger. It's going to make you the person that he wants you to be. Will you struggle with it? Absolutely you will. Will it be tough? Heck yes. Because even to this day, it probably wasn't till about 6 months ago. Okay, so mind you, that was 20 years ago. 6 months ago, I finally realized in my heart during my prayer time, I had not really truly forgiven my friend that betrayed me. I thought I did. I even ran into her one time in a Walmart when Jeremy and I were engaged, and I saw her and she came up to me and I told her, I said, I forgive you, I'm good. But I didn't. I didn't really forgive her because I was kind of asking God, why do these dreams that I have, these goals that I have, why do I feel like they're on hold? And he kind of said to me, he says, it's because you have not truly forgiven. And I'm thinking, who? Who have I not truly forgiven? And he placed her in my heart. He says, you still hold a little bit of resentment towards that. And over a couple of days, because if you know me, I'm a little bit stubborn. And sometimes when I get down there and I get before God, I even get stubborn with God. And I said, God, I don't understand. No, I'm sure I've forgiven her. I'm sure I have. So I just felt like I should pray. And I think that was one of those things that I had put, remember I said in my last episode, you put it in a box, you put the lid on it and you bury it down deep. And I think that's what I did with that. I put her in a box, I put a lid on it, I buried it down deep, and I wasn't going to pull it out from that hurt. And God made me 6 months ago pull that box out, open it up, and forgive. And can I tell you, it's almost like this huge weight came off my shoulders and was set somewhere else. And when you truly forgive somebody, you will feel a freedom that you've never felt before. And I'll be frank with you, right now, I'm working on forgiving someone that hurt me. Right now, in this very moment. Completely different situation, right? But somebody who didn't tell me the truth about a situation and then came back later and did something different. And I'll talk about that a little later on, but I'm still working on that one, right? There's always going to be somebody to forgive. Always. You're going to get hurt. I'll just tell you right now, you will. You're going to get hurt. Don't waste your time like I did. Don't be like me. Don't keep your guard up for 20 years where you don't let people in. Because boy, oh boy, when you do that, do you miss out on opportunities that you can have. Go and forgive. Go give what you're going through, not to. Give it to God. Give it to Him. Let Him take it from you and let Him take that and make beauty for what you have gone through, because He will. He loves you. It may not be immediately. That's what I really want to push to you. Not everything God does is immediate. I would love it to be. That would make my life a whole lot easier if He did everything right when I expected Him to. But guess what? He's not gonna. And guess what? It's not gonna be in the way you think either. That's one thing I have learned. It's never in the way that you think. So what I want to encourage you this week, pray. God, who do I need to forgive? Open my heart to my hurt. Help me to let it go. And if it's somebody you still know today, they may not even know that they've hurt you. That's the honest truth. Now, she did. She knew she hurt me, right? But the person that I'm working to forgive now, I guarantee you they don't know that they've hurt me. But God tells us to go to those people. And that's a tough one. So if you know the person, go to them, talk to them, say, you hurt me. Be honest with them, right? Be real. Be real with people. That's what I encourage you to do. People respect that more than they do you putting up a front. They really do. So I just encourage that for you this week. Thank you again for joining us. Start to let down your guard and be vulnerable this week. I love you guys.